Alright, anime fans, today, this one is gonna hurt a bit. Because Knights of the Zodiac, Saint Seiya had the chance to introduce a legendary franchise to a whole new generation, and somehow ended up feeling like a watered-down version of what made Saint Seiya special in the first place. Now, is it completely unwatchable? Let's find out. The original Saint Seiya was known for mythological storytelling, emotional sacrifice, brotherhood, cosmic-scale battles, and insanely passionate characters screaming about protecting Athena with their lives. It was dramatic as hell, but that emotional intensity is exactly why fans loved it. Then Knights of the Zodiac came in trying to modernize everything for global audiences. Sounds good on paper, but instead of feeling like a powerful rebirth of the franchise, it often feels like a sanitized, rushed, and emotionally weaker version of the original story. And honestly, that's the biggest problem. The story still follows Seiya, a street fighter who discovers he's one of Athena's legendary saints. He obtains the Pegasus cloth and joins other bronze saints to protect Athena, while fighting enemies connected to Greek mythology and cosmic power. On paper, still classic Saint Seiya, but the execution feels rushed as hell. Important moments that originally had emotional buildup, character tension, and mythological weight now fly by so quickly that scenes barely have time to breathe. The anime constantly feels like it's sprinting through iconic material instead of letting viewers actually feel it. Now let's break down its characters. This is honestly where the adaptation struggles the most. Firstly, Seiya. In the original anime, Seiya felt reckless, passionate, stubborn, and really emotionally driven. But here, he often feels flatter and just less intense emotionally. And that's a huge issue because honestly, Saint Seiya's entire identity depends on emotional passion. Characters like Shiryu, Hyuga, and Shun still exist, but, a lot of the relationships and emotional moments feel compressed or just kind of underdeveloped. The brotherhood doesn't hit nearly as hard, and let's not forget Shun's gender change. This caused massive backlash among longtime fans. The adaptation changed Shun into a female character. Now normally, gender swaps aren't automatically bad or anything, but fans hated this because Shun's entire identity was important precisely because he was compassionate without being weak, gentle without losing masculinity, and emotional while still being powerful. Changing him felt unnecessary to many viewers and honestly, misunderstood what made the character unique. Now let's talk about the action. This is probably the anime's strongest area, but even here it feels inconsistent. The CGI action isn't terrible. In fact, some fights actually look decent. There's fast movement, energy attacks, and those cloth transformations. But compared to modern high-end CGI anime, it often feels stiff and lacking impact. And compared to the raw emotional intensity of classic Saint Seiya fights, it just feels much less powerful. One of the biggest problems is that, honestly, the fights lack emotional pain. Original Saint Seiya battles felt brutal because characters constantly sacrificed themselves. Saints kept fighting while bleeding and broken, and every punch felt desperate. In Knights of the Zodiac, though, fights often feel cleaner and safer. That raw fight until your body literally collapses energy is mostly missing. And honestly, that's a massive part of Saint Seiya's identity gone. Now coming to animation and music, well, the CGI visuals here are honestly pretty hit or miss. Sometimes, like, the armor looks really cool, energy attacks come off as super flashy, and the environments feel, well, pretty decent. But other times, characters just move awkwardly, and the scenes kind of lack that cinematic impact. Now, if you look back at the original hand-drawn anime, it had this dramatic lighting, emotional close-ups, and an intense visual atmosphere. But yeah, this version often just feels more generic visually. The soundtrack is probably one of the biggest disappointments. Classic Saint Seiya music always felt mythological, emotional, and, honestly, heroic as hell. But this adaptation's soundtrack is far less memorable, and, well, that really hurts the atmosphere badly, because Saint Seiya without emotional music loses a huge amount of its soul. Coming to the themes, the original series explored sacrifice, brotherhood, faith, and perseverance against impossible odds. Now, this adaptation technically still includes those themes, but You know they feel weaker because the pacing rushes through emotional moments way too quickly. Instead of thinking, damn, that scene hit hard, you often end up feeling, just end it already. That emotional disconnect just hurts the entire experience. Here's the biggest issue. This adaptation removes too much of what made Saint Seiya special. Instead of feeling passionate, emotional, mythological, and larger than life, it often feels simplified, rushed, safer, and more generic. For longtime fans, it really feels like the soul of Saint Seiya got diluted. And for new-gen viewers, honestly, there are much better ways to experience the franchise, the original anime, the Sanctuary arc, Saint Seiya, Legend of Sanctuary if you want visual spectacle, or even Saint Seiya, The Lost Canvas if you're after modern emotional storytelling. Those versions just capture the spirit of Saint Seiya way better. Final thoughts, Knights of the Zodiac. Saint Seiya isn't completely terrible, but it feels like a version of Saint Seiya made without fully understanding why fans loved the original in the first place. The mythology is there, the characters are there, the fights are there, but the emotional soul, the dramatic intensity, the legendary passion, that stuff feels heavily weakened. And honestly, Saint Seiya without overwhelming emotional intensity is like removing Cosmo from the Saints themselves. The power is technically still there, but the magic is gone. That's it for today. Share your thoughts in the comments, like and subscribe for more anime content. And I'll catch you in the next one, my saints. Fight for Athena.